March 4, 1994. Hotel Excelsior, Rome. At 6:20 a.m. Courtney Love's panicked screams echoed through the luxury hotel's marble corridors as she discovered her husband Kurt Cobain unconscious on their bedroom floor, barely breathing. What the Italian doctors found in Kurt's system when paramedics rushed him to Umberto I Hospital would reveal a shocking truth that the music world was not prepared to hear. Kurt and Courtney had arrived in Rome 3 days earlier for what was supposed to be a romantic getaway, a second honeymoon to repair their troubled marriage. The couple had been fighting constantly, with rumors of divorce swirling through the media. This trip to Italy was meant to be their chance to reconnect away from the pressures of Seattle and the music industry. But from the moment they checked into the Hotel Excelsior's penthouse suite, something felt wrong. Kurt had been withdrawn and unusually quiet, spending hours staring out at the Roman skyline. He had barely touched the expensive meals Courtney ordered from room service, and he'd been taking what seemed like an excessive number of pills throughout their stay. Kurt had been different for weeks before Rome. Courtney later told investigators. He was distant, like he was already somewhere else in his mind. I thought maybe getting away from everything would bring him back to me. On the morning of March 3, their final day in Rome, Kurt had seemed to perk up slightly. He had suggested they go shopping, and they had spent the afternoon wandering through Italian boutiques, with Kurt buying Courtney an expensive leather jacket and several pieces of vintage jewelry. He was being so sweet and generous, Courtney remembered. He kept saying things like, "You deserve beautiful things and I want you to have something to remember this trip by." At the time I thought he was being romantic. Looking back, it feels like he was saying goodbye. That evening they had dinner at the hotel's restaurant, where other guests later reported that Kurt seemed more animated than he had been all week. He was laughing, telling stories, and appeared to be enjoying himself for the first time during their stay. He ordered champagne, recalled their waiter, Marco Benedetti. He made a toast to his wife, something about how she was the only person who truly understood him. They seemed very much in love that night. But back in their room, Kurt's mood changed dramatically. According to Courtney, he became agitated and paranoid, convinced that people were watching them, that their phones were tapped, that someone was trying to hurt Frances Bean back in Seattle. He was pacing around the room, checking the locks on the door over and over. Courtney later testified. He kept saying that we needed to get home, that something bad was going to happen if we stayed in Rome. Courtney tried to calm Kurt down, suggesting they call their nanny to check on Frances Bean, but Kurt was too agitated to be reasoned with. Eventually, exhausted from trying to comfort him, Courtney took a sleeping pill and went to bed around 2 a.m. "I should have stayed awake," she would say repeatedly in the weeks that followed. "I should have known something was really wrong." When Courtney woke up at 6 a.m. and found Kurt unconscious on the floor beside their bed, her first thought was that he had suffered some kind of seizure. His body was cold to the touch, his breathing was shallow and irregular, and she couldn't wake him no matter how hard she tried. "I started screaming for help," Courtney recalled. "I was shaking him, slapping his face, trying to get him to open his eyes. There was this empty pill bottle next to him, and I knew immediately what had happened." The hotel's concierge, Antonio Ricci, was the first to respond to Courtney's screams. He found her kneeling beside Kurt's unconscious form, frantically attempting CPR while sobbing hysterically. La Signora was in complete panic. Ricci remembered. She was screaming in English, he's not breathing," and I could see the man was in very serious condition. Italian paramedics arrived within 8 minutes of Ricci's call to emergency services. They immediately began working to stabilize Kurt, administering oxygen and checking his vital signs before rushing him to Umberto I Hospital, one of Rome's premier medical facilities. Dr. Osvaldo Galletta, the emergency room physician who treated Kurt, later described the scene as unlike anything I had encountered in 20 years of emergency medicine. When the patient arrived, he was in a deep comatose state, Dr. Galletta explained. His breathing was severely depressed. His heart rate was dangerously slow, and his body temperature had dropped significantly. These were clear signs of a serious overdose. But what shocked Dr. Galletta and his medical team wasn't just the severity of Kurt's condition, it was what they found when they ran toxicology tests to determine what substances were in his system. "We expected to find heroin, perhaps cocaine, maybe alcohol, the typical substances we see in overdose cases involving rock musicians," Dr. Galletta revealed years later. What we actually found was far more complex and disturbing. The toxicology report showed that Kurt had consumed a potentially lethal combination of ropanol, champagne, and what appeared to be a large quantity of Klonopin, But most shocking of all was the presence of a rare pharmaceutical compound that the Italian doctors had never encountered before. There was this unknown substance in his bloodstream, Dr. Galetta explained. It wasn't showing up in any of our standard drug identification systems. We had to send samples to laboratories in Switzerland and Germany to identify what it was. The mystery compound turned out to be a powerful experimental anti-anxiety medication that wasn't approved for use in any country. Further investigation revealed that Kurt had somehow obtained this drug from an underground pharmaceutical network that was supplying untested medications to celebrities and wealthy individuals seeking alternative treatments for mental health issues. This wasn't just an overdose? Dr. Galetta concluded. This was a case of someone taking experimental drugs that had never been properly tested on humans. He was essentially being used as a test subject. The discovery of the experimental medication raised immediate questions about who had supplied it to Kurt and why he had been taking such a dangerous, untested substance. Italian police launched an investigation that would eventually lead them to a shadowy network of underground doctors and pharmaceutical researchers operating throughout Europe. Detective Inspector Rosa Martinelli, who led the investigation, described the case as unlike anything we had seen before in terms of celebrity drug abuse. This wasn't street drugs or typical prescription abuse, Martinelli explained. This was sophisticated chemical experimentation being conducted on vulnerable individuals without proper medical oversight or safety protocols. As Kurt lay unconscious in the intensive care unit at Umberto I Hospital, doctors worked around the clock to stabilize his condition. The experimental drug in his system was interfering with traditional overdose treatments, forcing the medical team to improvise solutions they had never tried before. We were essentially flying blind, admitted Dr. Galetta. The standard treatments for overdose weren't working because we were dealing with a completely unknown substance. We had to contact toxicologists around the world to get advice on how to treat him. For 20 hours, Kurt remained in a deep coma while his body struggled to process the toxic combination of substances. Courtney rarely left his bedside, holding his hand and talking to him constantly, hoping he could somehow hear her voice. The doctors told me there was a very real possibility that he might never wake up, Courtney later revealed. They said even if he did regain consciousness, there could be permanent brain damage from the experimental drug. Media attention was immediate and intense. Within hours of Kurt's hospitalization, reporters from around the world had descended on Rome, camping outside the hospital and offering enormous sums of money for inside information about his condition. It was a circus, recalled Dr. Galetta. We had to post security guards just to keep journalists from trying to sneak into the ICU. Everyone wanted to know what had happened to Kurt Cobain. The story took another shocking turn when Italian police discovered that the experimental drug found in Kurt's system was being manufactured in a secret laboratory hidden beneath a luxury villa outside Rome. The facility was run by Dr. Heinrich Müller, a German chemist who had been expelled from legitimate pharmaceutical research for conducting unauthorized human experiments. Dr. Müller was creating custom drug cocktails for wealthy clients who were seeking alternatives to traditional psychiatric medications, Detective Martinelli explained. He was promising miracle cures for depression and anxiety, but he was essentially using his clients as guinea pigs for untested chemical compounds. The investigation revealed that Kurt had been introduced to Dr. Müller through a network of celebrities and wealthy individuals who were all seeking experimental treatments for mental health issues. Many of these clients, like Kurt, were struggling with conditions that traditional medicine hadn't been able to effectively treat. Kurt was desperate for something that would help with his depression and chronic pain, Courtney later explained. When someone told him about this doctor who had revolutionary new treatments, Kurt was willing to try anything. On the evening of March 5th, more than 30 hours after he had been found unconscious, Kurt finally began to regain consciousness. His first words, according to the medical staff, were, "Where's Francis?" referring to his daughter back in Seattle. Dr. Galetta was amazed by Kurt's recovery given the severity of his condition and the unknown effects of the experimental drug. It was remarkable that he survived at all. Dr. Galetta reflected. The combination of substances in his system should have been fatal. His survival was either extremely lucky or evidence of an extraordinary constitution. Kurt remained hospitalized for 3 more days, while doctors monitored his recovery and ensured that the experimental drug had been completely eliminated from his system. During this time, Italian authorities continued their investigation into Dr. Müller's underground pharmaceutical operation. The aftermath of the Rome incident had far-reaching consequences. Dr. Muller's laboratory was shut down and he was arrested on charges of illegal drug manufacturing and endangering human life. Several other celebrities who had been his clients came forward, revealing the extent of the underground experimental drug network. Kurt's near-fatal overdose in Rome also led to increased scrutiny of celebrity drug abuse and the dangerous lengths that famous individuals would go to in seeking alternative treatments for mental health issues. The Rome incident was a wake-up call for the entertainment industry, said addiction specialist Dr. Sarah Williams. It showed that even successful, intelligent people could fall victim to unscrupulous individuals promising miracle cures. For Kurt and Courtney, the Rome incident represented a turning point in their relationship, and Kurt's struggle with his inner demons. The experience had brought them closer together, but it had also made clear the severity of Kurt's mental health issues and his desperation to find relief from his psychological pain. Rome saved our marriage in some ways, Courtney later reflected. It showed us both how close we came to losing everything, but it also made me realize that Kurt's problems were more serious than I had understood. The doctor's shocking discovery in Rome would remain largely hidden from the public for years, with only rumors and speculation about what had really happened in that luxury hotel room. The truth about the experimental drugs and the underground pharmaceutical network would eventually emerge, but not until long after Kurt's death, just 5 weeks later. The Rome incident stands as a stark reminder of how the pressures of fame, combined with untreated mental health issues, can drive even the most successful individuals to seek dangerous and potentially fatal solutions to their psychological pain. But the full scope of the Rome incident's impact extended far beyond Kurt and Courtney's personal crisis. The discovery of Dr. Muller's underground pharmaceutical network triggered an international investigation that would expose a shadowy world of experimental drug trafficking, targeting the world's most vulnerable celebrities. Within days of Kurt's hospitalization, law enforcement agencies from 6 countries were coordinating efforts to track down Dr. Muller's network of clients and suppliers. The investigation, codenamed Operation Prescription, revealed that the German chemist had been operating similar facilities in Switzerland, Monaco, and Beverly Hills. Agent Sarah Chen of Interpol, who coordinated the international investigation, described the scope of the operation as unprecedented in terms of celebrity exploitation. We discovered that Dr. Muller had been specifically targeting individuals in the entertainment industry who were struggling with mental health issues, Agent Chen explained. He was using their desperation and their wealth to fund his illegal experiments with untested pharmaceutical compounds. The client list found in Dr. Muller's Rome laboratory read like a who's who of international celebrities. While most names were kept confidential due to ongoing legal proceedings, sources close to the investigation revealed that the network included major film stars, renowned musicians, and even several members of European royalty. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a forensic toxicologist, was horrified by what she discovered in Kurt's system. These weren't just experimental drugs, Dr. Martinez revealed. Some substances had been banned from human testing decades ago because of dangerous side effects. The specific compound that nearly killed Kurt was NZT-47, a synthetic substance abandoned after test subjects experienced severe psychological breaks and brain damage. Kurt was incredibly lucky to survive, Dr. Martinez explained. We found records showing only 3 of 12 other subjects survived exposure to this compound. The investigation revealed Kurt wasn't Dr. Muller's only famous client to suffer overdoses. At least 6 other celebrities had been hospitalized after taking experimental drugs from the network. The media attention attracted Italian organized crime investigators who suspected connections to larger drug trafficking networks throughout Europe. Dr. Muller's operation was more sophisticated and dangerous than many traditional drug networks, explained Detective Marco Santini. He was targeting specific individuals with custom compounds designed to create maximum dependency. The investigation revealed Dr. Muller had been using psychological profiling to identify vulnerable celebrities. Kurt had been specifically targeted because of his documented struggles with depression and chronic pain. The Rome incident had significant implications for Kurt's medical care back in Seattle. Dr. Robert Baker, Kurt's longtime physician, was shocked to learn about the experimental drug use. Kurt had been complaining for months about traditional medications not working, Dr. Baker revealed. I wish he had told me he was considering experimental treatments. However, friends noticed that Kurt seemed different after Rome. While he had physically recovered, the psychological impact seemed to have changed him. Kurt came back with this fatalistic attitude, recalled his friend Dylan Carlson. He kept talking about how he wasn't afraid of death anymore. That scared all of us. Dr. Meller was eventually extradited to the United States and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. His pharmaceutical network was completely dismantled. The Rome incident stands as a stark reminder of how fame pressures combined with untreated mental health issues can drive successful individuals to seek dangerous solutions to their psychological pain.